Ben, I'll just start by saying thank you. I think I speak for most of us, if not all of us, just saying, you've really engaged with this and you've given us plenty of your time, and it's places you'd rather be, I'm sure, and people you'd rather be with. So thanks for that. First of all, I guess you've had a lot of time to reflect on this the last 24 hours and you've done a bit of chatting around the place. What would you like to think now that your legacy with this team is with your teammates or the fans?
Well, first of all, I'd say the feel in this room is a lot different to what it was 6 or 7 days ago. I'll give that one. But I don't know, really. I mean, that's, again, you could ask all the supporters of English cricket that same question and you'll probably get a few different answers. And, I guess everyone's got the right to say what they want and whatever. But I guess it's for me, I'll just say that I feel like I've given as much as I could have done to England over the years that I've been lucky enough to represent this team, and I guess that's the one thing that I hope everyone will be able to say is that he left everything out there at every single opportunity that he got to wear the shirt, because there's certainly something that I always sort of told myself to make sure I do, is regardless of what goes on in terms of the returns of whether it be with the bowling or batting, just as long as you're going out there and making sure that you're giving absolutely everything every single time, then you can hold your head high. So from that account, I feel like I can hold my head pretty high.
And there's been a lot of talk so far about your future, what your next move is, what you do next, when we may or may not see you again. I wonder about the future of the team. How do you reflect on where you're leaving this team versus where you picked it up? Yeah,
well, I announced I was retiring yesterday, and then I've had a few questions asking if I'm going to be able to sit on my sofa watching next year. I mean, I know it's the Ashes next year, but I'll probably be watching it in a hospitality box somewhere, not thinking about what's going on in the field. But look, I think this team has all the capabilities in the world to be able to go on and achieve what I think it should be able to achieve. And look, I'm one individual in a sport that requires 11 people to go out there and achieve what every team must achieve, which is to win. And there's a lot of time to go before obviously the big one, which is the Ashes in 2027, for things to be able to take place. But the people who are in that dressing room now, I've got absolute confidence as well that they'll be able to go on and do what needs to be done in terms of taking the team forward. I feel like I've, as I've just said, given everything to the team as a player, and I'm pretty sure I can be happy that I've given everything I could to the team as a captain over 4.5 years. In a comical way, I guess I can say it's not my problem anymore. But yeah, look, I'll still be following this team with as much interest as ever. I love the England cricket team. I've got a serious passion for seeing the team do well, and that's not going to change just because I'm not in the dressing room anymore.
And you've been a big personality in this job, out there on the field, in the dressing room, even talking to us, putting messaging out there. Do you think that there's people there, leaders, who can step up and fill that, what is a pretty big gap now?
Yeah, definitely. And look, you go back to when I got asked to do it, I think there was a lot of people saying no. I've got no experience in captaining or leadership. It's too much for me to take on my shoulders because of the role that I play in the team. I was being compared to the other great, I've just called myself great, sorry, to the other all-rounders that were before me, because of how things went for them. But there are leaders in that group whoever is asked to take the team forward, they'll be able to, put their own stamp on this team, because that's what I've tried to do. And it shouldn't be any different for whoever gets the honour of taking this team forward from the series against Pakistan.
Do you feel Harry Brook is ready to take that baton from you, your vice-captain?
Yes, I do. There's a reason why he was asked to be vice-captain of this team. I know that, again, with all the controversy over the last couple of weeks, there was some decisions that were made, but those were decisions that I wasn't part of making. You're asked to be vice captain of a team for a certain reason. I was vice captain under Joe for a long time, and it's a natural progression. If the captain's not there or unavailable, then you step up to be that. So there's absolutely no reason why Harry shouldn't be asked to do that. He's someone who's obviously an incredible player, one of the more senior players in this group, and look, we all know he's a phenomenally talented individual when it comes to his skill as a batter, and if you lump a bit more responsibility on the shoulders with this team, we don't know if that's going to show any more improvement in the skills that he's already got. Only time will tell, but you don't ask someone to be vice captain if you don't think that they've got the skills and the ability to be able to captain the team when they need to. So if I was to be asked to, I think should do it, I would throw in my 100% support behind Harry Brook.
And do you still believe that Brendon, McCullum and Rob Key for the right will take the team forward?
What me, Brendon and Rob have managed to do over 4.5 years has been, I'm not going to lie, it's been quite an interesting ride if you take it for what it is. We've had some incredible highs, we've had some pretty low lows as well. But I feel he's always worked and connected pretty well in terms of what we want to achieve, and we've always had that direction of how do we get the team better, how do we take them forward, and it doesn't always work out the way that you want it to work out. Again, I'm done now. I don't have to make those decisions, I don't have to be involved in all that kind of stuff, and if I'm being honest, one of the nice feelings about being in the situation that I find myself in now is that I don't have to worry about that stuff. But I've thoroughly enjoyed my 4.5 years working relationship with Brendon and Rob. And then there's other decisions to be made that I don't have to give a shit about now, so that's not good.
Chris and then Vish, Junior.
I was asking to ask about Rob and Brendon as well, so I might look at it another way. In terms of, you said you want Harry, you think you choose Harry to be the next captain. His relationship with Brendon, do you think those two as a combination that can take the team forward to next year's Ashes?
Yeah, I think so. I think the most important thing with whatever happens going forward is that there needs to be clarity in the vision of whatever is going to take English cricket forward with the changes that are obviously going to happen. When me and Brendon first took over, we were very clear about what we wanted to do, and that's going to be no different for the next role in leadership. It's going to be no difference for the role in leadership after that. Both captain and coach need to come together and put their ideas together and believe in what they're trying to do going forward, and whoever that may be, then that's what needs to happen. But again, I'm just going to keep saying I don't have to worry about that again. So,
Vish.
Hi Ben. Yesterday you spoke about the thoughts you were having over the last 12 months, and then it was a conversation with Claire that kind of you were able to talk you through and decide that this was it. Did it need to be someone who knows you that well to be able to say, look, you should stop essentially because it's taking its time?
No, not really. I think it was a situation where people just needed to hear me and I needed to speak. My wife knows me better than anybody else in the world. I spoke to other people who I've got very good relationships with, who I managed to play a lot of cricket with as well. So, I didn't just want to limit myself to, one person. I wanted to share my thoughts with quite a few different people and get, some different point of views. But at the end of the day, the decision was always going to be mine. I didn't really feel like I ever was influenced by anything other than me. I just felt like even just talking about the whole situation was just good for me to get my head clear and making sure that I was being completely honest with myself and taking the right amount of time and measured approach to this whole thing. And I did that. I got myself through into this game, and as I said before, when I went back for Durham, I really, really enjoyed it there. And I thought I'd be able to take all of that stuff into this week. And there were certainly moments this week where obviously really enjoyed, but there are certain moments that you sort of feel like you don't enjoy as much because of where you are in terms of representing England. The pressure that comes with this level of cricket is something that, as I said yesterday, I just don't feel like I have it in me to enjoy those kind of things anymore, because cricket for me is something that I love and I always want to love, and I don't want to ever feel like I want to get into a place where I have any negative feelings towards it, because I've been there before. This sport's given me so much that I don't want to find myself back there. And the moments that I had back at Durham with my boyhood club, it was just all smiles, it was just all good vibes, it was all happiness, and that's all I want to do, because I played this game for fun and excitement and enjoyment when I was a kid. Just because I'm 35 and I played a lot of cricket for this country doesn't mean that should be any different. And for all the games before that, that's what I felt. But unfortunately now I'm at a stage where there's just certain things that don't fill me with that same enjoyment anymore. I'm not afraid to say that, because I just love the sport too much to have any negative feelings towards it anymore.
Are we going to see you again for Durham this summer, or are you going to take the bit of time off maybe this summer?
I texted Ryan Campbell last night just saying up the D's. I've got a few days away with the family and then I'll let you know what my plans are. And he texted me back saying, probably got a rookie contract on the table for you if you want it. But yeah, look, my plan was to go back and play some games for Durham in the Metro Bank anyway, in between these two series. That will probably change now, but yeah, look, again, when said yesterday some of the emotions that I was going through, and I said one of them was excitement. I'm excited about the prospect that I get to go back and play some more games for Durham, because again, I look at it without Durham and when I was younger to the progression that I made through into the first team, without them I wouldn't be sat here talking about all this kind of stuff now. So it's a case of going back and having a bit of fun playing, but also I guess repaying some of the stuff that they have given to me to allow me to have played as much as I have for England.
Julian, and then Stefan, and then I've got off this side.
Sorry about that. Can I just ask, whose idea was it for you to open last night, and what was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, it was something that we'd spoken about sort of as the game progressed, really, when we've seen that the wicket was starting to get a little bit trickier to play on. Look, there's no doubt that the weather obviously played a big part in that over the first 2.5 days because of the extreme heat. So I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to notice how the scores changed from 320 for none to how it ended up playing out. The heat made that wicket dry out. There was balls going up, there was balls going down, there was cracks starting to show, and that's the exciting thing about this game, this format, is that the next day is always different to the one you played on, and it's going to be different the next day as well. So as the game got further and further, it was obvious that the newer ball and the harder ball, yes, it probably felt like it was the easiest time to score because there was more attacking field, so there's less fielders to have to hit through the infield, if that makes sense, but also it was actually the most dangerous time in terms of taking wickets. So we were like, well, we need to try and capitalise on the best time for scoring, whilst also making it pretty difficult for New Zealand to feel like they could go with their attacking field in terms of slips and everything around it. So look at it two ways, where we come off 100 for 4, it would have been great if we were only 2 down. But we felt we made a massive dent in such a big total, because we were never going to not try and chase that total down because we were 1-1. We felt the best way for us to be able to chase that score down was to score as many runs as possible when the ball was at its hardest, because as the ball got softer you could see that the ring fields came into play more. It was harder to force the ball through. And the less amount of runs we had to score on the last day, we thought that was giving ourselves the best chance to do it. It was unfortunate that we ended up losing 4 wickets last night, but it was a complete and utter tactical decision that we made to send the people up the order who we felt were going to give us the best chance of scoring quick runs.
Stefan.
And you talked about that game you played for Durham and how much you enjoyed it and the feeling that it gave you about playing cricket. But then said, there's certain things about playing for England that are stopping you from having that enjoyment. What are those things?
Quite a lot. Even doing the extra responsibilities now as 35 of just, even, I don't mean this in any negative way whatsoever for you guys, but just this kind of stuff, don't have to worry about speaking to the media about certain things anymore. I can just go out and play for Durham and play the game, and if I've had a good day, if I've had a bad day, I can just go home, have a bit of dinner and then rock up the next day. And I know it sounds silly, but it's something that if you do go through, it does take its toll, I guess, and I definitely feel like it has done. There's a lot of things where it becomes mentally tiring, some of the stuff that gets thrown on your shoulders as captain of the team, but also as a player, the extra scrutiny, the extra expectation from this sport and this level is something that never really bothered me, it never really fussed me, but as I've got to sort of closer to the end of my career, I guess I felt like it has started to take its toll a little bit. And as I said earlier, I don't want to, to feel like I'm having to do things because it's the right thing to do for other people. A huge part of this decision is because of what I think is right for me to still want to be able to play cricket with a smile on my face. And even in the build-up to the game last week at Lord's, after 6 months about being away, I should have been like buzzing and ecstatic and excited about everything that week was to offer. But when I got myself into that, it sort of wasn't how I thought it should be. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. It does in my head. I don't know if I've made that very clear well enough, but it does take its toll, and there's a lot of things that goes on that people don't see, back at home, all this kind of stuff. So.
I know you said you've been thinking about this for a long time, and at Lord's it didn't feel right. But then, did everything that happened after Lord's accelerate those feelings? And might you have been tempted to hang on for a little bit longer if you hadn't gone through everything that you've been through in the past couple of weeks?
It's an interesting one, because I think there would have been, if the situation that unfolded didn't happen, we're either going to be here talking about this or not. It was just that quite a few things that I was feeling ended up being told to a few more people than I was expecting to know. And you either would have known or you wouldn't have known, because I would have, I was feeling like I'll get myself through to the end of this and we'll see where we are. And people would have known, or people would have been none to the wiser except my wife. But, just as I say, because of the circumstance, things just changed, and that was another thing that sort of had to deal with over 2.5 weeks. But maybe it has contributed a little bit, but it's not the overriding factor as to why I came to this decision, because one way or the other, this day was always going to happen, and it just happens to be it was now.
Okay, can we get a final four? So Richard, Mel, Simon and Simon.
Ben, you once always a champion Test cricket, and obviously now you're bowing out. What would you say? How would you sell the game of Test cricket to those that will come after you? How would you encourage them to attack it like you have?
I guess whenever someone new comes into the dressing room or into the environment and they are, coming in to make their debut or whatever it is, I guess the one message that I feel like I've always said is, don't feel like you have to change because you're now in the dressing room. You've got yourself here because of the way that you play, and you've been successful at doing that at one level. So go out there and do the exact same thing that's got you here in the first place. Just do things your way, do it how you want to do it, do what you think is going to give yourself the best opportunity of being successful. And most importantly, try your hardest to enjoy it, because we need to try and keep hold of that inner child of playing in the garden with your friends or down the park with your friends, where everything is just fun. Now you throw on top of that expectation, pressure from playing in front of 25, 30,000 people, millions of people across the world. But if you break it down and simplify it, it's just another game of cricket. And it's how you deal with those extra things that come with it. You either, as I say, let it eat you up, or you just embrace it all, because when you're a kid, you dream of doing that. You dream of playing for England, or you dream of playing international cricket. You dream of walking out in front of these people, and then if you're lucky enough to be able to find yourself in that situation, don't let it feel bigger than what it is. Because when you're younger, that's all you wanted to do, and then you work so hard to get there. Try your hardest not to make it bigger than what it is.
Say bigger than what it is. You said that many reasons came into why you're leaving now. Was the Ashes defeat bigger for you than perhaps first acknowledged at the end of that series? Did that take more out of you than perhaps you wanted it to?
Yeah, maybe, but I think also the 6 months after that was probably another thing as well. You know, there was a lot of time, physically getting myself ready again for the summer. Going through things that we wanted to feel like we needed to improve as a team, or I wanted to improve as a captain, as a leader. So I spent a lot of time, as I say, doing things away from, the eye of the world, if that makes sense. And if I look back on it, did I maybe put myself through too much? I could probably say, yeah, I did. That's something that I'll always sort of maybe be questioning myself. Like, if I'd just taken things a little bit easier, would it have changed things? I don't know. But then again, I can flip it around and go, well, that's what I've always done. I've always thrown myself into everything that I've done. Is it just meant to be my time? So yeah, I don't know. Australia is always tough, and it was tough. But then obviously it was a tough 6 months after that as well. So yeah, there's a lot of things.
Mel? Okay, Simon.
I've got a good third book potentially, good luck.
You said it.
Ben, one of the things you said you were always going to try to do was to make the dressing room environment happier and less pressured. Having been Joe's friend and vice captain and seeing what he went through, was there anything he did to try and make captaincy a happier and less pressured, to make the burden hang less heavily?
Anything that I did for I think it's gone in phases, sort of how I wanted to lead the team, to be honest. If you look back at the first summer, there was reasons to why we were doing what we were doing. We then, started off like a house on fire, and I've said this openly. I said I had absolutely no idea how it was going to go. It could have been absolutely horrendous. We could have lost 7 from 7, but we ended up winning 6 from 7, was it? And everyone's really happy. I'm really happy. I'm thinking, geez, how easy is this? And then you build on that, and then you start then seeing the tough side of the job, and when everything else starts coming in with that, the scrutiny of being a captain, the scrutiny towards the team when things don't go well. So I've always tried to speak in a way which tries to get the players not thinking about all that kind of stuff, and it is a tough thing to do. I guess for myself, maybe towards the back end of this job, maybe I did put way too much pressure on myself. But 4.5 years doing this job, it is a long time, and it has come with a lot of pressure. Something that I will never look back on with any regret, because it's been absolutely awesome through all the good times, through all the bad times. Because I'm one of the very few lucky people who get to do this job, and I'll always love everything that came with it, through the good times and all the bad times. Just always tried to just speak in a way that directed the team's attention away from maybe what was being said outside.
And just on the choreography of yesterday, you're pushing yourself through one of these massive spells. Presumably knew when the bombshell was going to drop. Did you want to be bowling when the news broke?
The choreography. It sounds like you made it sound like a dance routine. I mean, if we had the ability to be able to script a full day of Test cricket, I would script it that we win every single game. But it just so happened that I was in the middle of a long spell because of how well that the team was operating. I felt like I was creating a lot of chances, was also going nowhere. We were taking wickets at the other end. And then it just so happened that I was bowling when the announcement came, and not going to lie, I did have a bit of a laugh saying like typical, like I would have to take a wicket the next ball. And then obviously going out to open the batting, as I explained before, that was a tactical thing that we've been speaking about for a few days before. So yeah, look, I think we can please try and edge away from saying it was choreographed for that whole day, because she's would be absolute geniuses. I mean, we'd have to get New Zealand in on that as well if that was the case, right? So we didn't ask Tom to declare Swan about open the batting in my last day, so it just worked out how it worked out, and yeah, that's it.
Simon at that.
Ben, thanks again for all the pleasure you've given us all through the years, and it's been a privilege to watch you play. How would you like to be remembered?
It's just someone who knew what it always meant to wear an England shirt, and did everything that they could to win, and just tried the hardest every single time that they walked onto the field, and left everything out there on every single occasion. I'd like to think I've done that for pretty much every game that I've worn the shirt. So hopefully people can all agree with that, that's what I try to do, and then everything else outside of that, wins, losses, whatever it may be, then that comes secondary to hard effort and everything like that to me. So I hope that's what people can say.
And one final super quick one on Trent Bridge.
Ben, just on the crowd, the reception that you got when the news did break, was that a moment of critical clarity? I know we've talked about the circumstances in which it happened, but maybe did the crowd energise you a little bit more to try and go out on a high?
I'm not going to lie, that's one of the feelings that I'm going to miss as an England player, is when the crowd gets behind you and gets on your back, because I've had quite a few moments where I've felt that, and it does take you from where you feel like you're at the top of your adrenaline level, and then you find even more. That made me feel like I could just keep going and going and going and going again. I felt fresh as a daisy after that, even though I bowled quite a lot of overs in that spell. But I absolutely love playing international cricket here. I've got some pretty good memories anyway. This is where I scored my first class 100 against Notts back in 2010. I won the Ashes here. And I've seen some pretty special performances from England players, and some players that we played against as well. So I've got unbelievable memories here as an international player and as an England player and as a captain. So I've absolutely loved playing at this ground. It's awesome. The atmosphere is always class. So if anything, I feel quite lucky that this is where I would have walked off the field for my last time as a player, because of all the fun memories I've got.
Thank you very much.
Thanks all.
Just from me, guys, 4.5 years of doing what I've done, I've loved every moment of coming and talking to you guys. Genuinely. No, I do. I understand the responsibility I've got as captain to take the good with the smooth, the nice questions, the tough questions, and I've had up and down days, but I appreciate that you guys have all got a job to do, and there's no hard feelings whatsoever about some of the pressing questions that you've asked me over the years. So I just wish you all the best in your job still. So thanks you very much.